The majority of the South was made up of large plantations. A plantation is like a big farm. The owner of the plantation and his family would have lived at the big house in the center of the plantation. But a plantation was more than just the big house and some farms. There was a lot of activity and buildings on a plantation. This is an actual image of Shirley Plantation, which is located on the James River in Virginia. You can see the James River is this blue area up at the top. Plantations were often located on rivers so that they could sell the crops that they grew really easily. Remember, this was before planes and really before trains and before cars. So, the fastest way to sell things, especially like crops, would have been to put it on a boat on a river. You can see from this image of Shirley Plantation that a plantation is more than just the house where the family lived and the farms. It includes lots of different little buildings. Some of these buildings are the stables, which is like where the horses would be kept, where laundry was done, a flour mill, which is where flour would have been created for the family and for the workers to eat, a blacksmith, a carpenter, and then you can see that there are gardens and fields. There's also slave quarters, which we'll talk about in a little bit. The plantations would have grown crops that the South specialized in, like tobacco, indigo, rice, and cotton. This is a tobacco field. There are two groups of people that would have worked on the fields: indentured servants and enslaved Africans. An indentured servant is somebody who comes from Europe, from England, and agrees to work on the plantation without pay for 5 to 7 years. An indentured servant would choose to come over to North America and work without pay because maybe he couldn't afford to come over on his own. So he'll agree, and this is an indenture, an agreement, where he will agree to come over and work without pay, and after 5 to 7 years, he'll be set free, and at that point, he'll be able to find a farm of his own and make money on his own. The other group of people that worked on the fields would have been enslaved Africans. Enslaved Africans did not have a choice. They were enslaved, especially by the Portuguese, which is something we learned early in the year, and they were forced and brought over to North America. It was not their choice, and they were forced to work on the fields indefinitely, which means for the rest of their lives. They were not given freedom after 5 to 7 years like the indentured servants were. They were not treated well. Here we have an image of slave quarters. You can see a drawing of slave quarters over on the left-hand side, and then images of actual slave quarters. This is where they would have been living and sleeping, and where they would have lived for their lives. We are going to talk more about indentured servants and enslaved Africans, but it's important to know that plantations would have taken up most of the South, and the majority of the work would have been done by these two groups. Write your observation for marker number 5.